All right. I think we're going to get started, but I think, Shmuel, I have to start with scripture today. It's just a day for it. So I've got a couple here. I'm going to start with Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And Psalm 103, 19 and 20. The Lord has established his throne in heaven, and his kingdom rules over all. Praise the Lord, you his angels, you mighty ones who do his bidding, who obey his word. And just a couple more. Proverbs 11:14. For lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. And Proverbs 19:21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. So we have a lot going on today, a lot to talk about. And wow, what a historic, adventurous day. But no matter the outcome, no matter what happens today, my prayer and my hope is that everyone remembers that God is still on the throne. God knows the outcome, God knows what's going on, He knows where we're going to be tomorrow, and His plans and His purposes have not changed. And He holds Israel in the palm of His hands and keeps His people safe. And we just have to be here and be obedient and do what we know to do. Continue to pray, continue to lift up our leaders, no matter who they are in the world. So, I don't know. Shmuel, what do we got to talk about today?
Yes, yes. You think it's only something that concerns you? You need to know that every Israeli at this moment is stuck in front of the TV and wants to get information. What happened in Pennsylvania? Did they voted more than 70% in Philadelphia? What's happening in Minnesota? Is Nevada like everything? Everybody's on top of it. And I must tell you, the knowledge people have here in Israel is pretty insane. I mean, you know when there's an election in someone's country, you know who is against who, and that stops over there. But the amount of energy and knowledge and data that Israel has overheard in the last month and 4 months probably is huge because we understand, as you understand, that the results of today are going to have big impact and crucial impact, I would say, even to what's happening in Israel. So I want to start off by saying this. And Kim, can you mute yourself because I hear myself twice? Thank you. Um, as Kim said, regardless of what happens today, and that's something that's very important to remember. And we tend to put all the focus of who is going to be elected. And it reminds me the story of the book of Samuel, and where the people come to Samuel and ask for a king, and you see God's reaction. He doesn't like it. And he says, it's not that they're looking for a king, it's me that they've rejected. And I think it's a very simple way to understand that there is something when we are talking and over talking and thinking that everything will be different if this person or that person will be elected. There's a limit. There's a limit to the extent of how much it is true. Now, from our perspective, from human perspective, I understand that. We want to trust something and we know that this person and that person said this or that or the other, and we trust that, they're going to follow the lead. So I need to share that I've been talking all over the world around about elections in the last 6 years I with CFOIC. And now there was one time that my guy, my horse in the race, Naftali Bennett, was elected. And I was sure that was the most important thing. What a change. It's going to be amazing. And it completely changed what I thought. It took the leadership, it took what he promised, and he completely changed it. At that day, I think a lot of Israelis woke up and understood this is what happens. We're talking with politicians. And politicians have a limitations of how much you can trust, and the politicians have a limitation of anything, basically, of how they make their decisions. So I'm gonna go back to the elections soon in the US because it is a very important matter, but I wanna start off with just a breaking news from the last 45 minutes ago. So 45 minutes ago, apparently, our defense minister, Gallant, is being called to Bibi Netanyahu's office. And now, in the middle of the war, like that, he fires him. He tells him, "You're going to be replaced." And now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Israel Katz, will be the Minister of Defense. And Gidon Saar, that wasn't a minister at all, and he wasn't even in the coalition until a while ago, is going to replace him as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So there's going to be like changes of chairs, and you might think to yourself, okay, so what does it mean? So I want to bring you back in memory lane just a couple of months ago. We knew from the very beginning that Prime Minister Netanyahu and Mr. Gallant, they don't work well with each other. And we know there was always like this debates among them about decisions making. We hear over and over again, we're not inside those, behind doors. We don't know exactly what happens, but the feeling is, let's put it this way, when Netanyahu wanted to go all in, Gallant was there to push and coordinating with the army, saying, hold back, wait, 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 wait. And this brought a lot of tension. And it was a couple of months after the beginning of the war, and that Netanyahu decided to fire Gallant. This is in his power. Prime Minister can fire any minister like this. But when he did it, something crazy happened. That night is famous to be Leil Gallant, Gallant Night, because what would happen then, and a very surprising and shocking move, that the streets of Israel were filled with demonstrators and people protesting against this move. And I'm not talking about something small or minor only in Tel Aviv, talking literally everywhere. People went down to the streets and say, how can you deal with politics when you're in the middle of a war? Like, take responsibility. You're fighting. This is your minister of defense. Whatever you have, like disagreement, whatever you're fighting, put it aside for a second. We're dealing here with such an important matter. Like, what are you doing? And it was pretty shocking to see that maybe 24 hours, because when he's getting fired, he has 48 hours until it's actually starting. And it worked. And the pressure was maneuvering Netanyahu. And after 24 hours, in a very quiet way, he said, after considering the issue, I understood that indeed it is a mistake to fire Gallant at this time, and he needs to come back, hopefully, for cooperation. So what happened? What changed? And why now? That wasn't supposed to be the topic of the conversation today. But this is the Israel update. So at least let's take care and let's use the fact that this is a live update really to tell you what happened. In the last couple of weeks, it's been around for a couple of months, and we've talked about it at this Zoom. So if you're coming every month to this Zoom, I've opened the subject a while ago, but it doesn't stop. And the subject, of course, is, you know what? You know what's the subject? Open the mic and say the subject that is really now on the fence and everybody's talking about. And that's the biggest debate in Israel now. There's a quiz for you. I'll drink a sip of a coffee. You know, I'll tell you, the biggest story now, the biggest drama is what do we do with the ultra Orthodox not getting in the army, not drafted. I said it in the past. You need to understand this in the most, simple way. Israelis, especially reserve soldiers, they are sick and tired till here from fighting this war. It's hard to say it, but I will say it because people need to understand what it means, and we're repeating it over and over again, and we won't stop. You need to understand what it means to leave your family when you're a civilian, when you're a father, when you have a home, and you need to leave your kids, and you have 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, whatever, and you leave them for 200 days, 250 days, and 300 days of a year. I'm talking about severe damage that cannot be repaired. I'm talking about loss of connections with your kids, with your wife. I'm talking about people that lost their jobs, changed plans. In the beginning, all of Israel, go back to the 7th of October, you would go to somebody who's 80 years old, you tell him, go and fight for Israel. He would go and fight. But what happened was that the pressure fell on a small percentage of Israelis that are still fighting in reserve. And what started as 3 and 4 months in Gaza continued into, after 4 months, you go home for a month, and then you come back to 2 months, and then another month went home, and then 3 months back in the army. So people in the ages of 30 to 45, my friends, had to serve more than 200 and 250 days. So what started with a great support system and people were all in, I remember we sent the Shabbat box. The mother was, oh, thank you. We feel that we are part of the journey of the people of Israel in fighting. Now go to those mothers and they're going to tell you, enough is enough. It's not normal how much a civilian person should suffer. Now, listen, this is not showing a weakness. It's only showing that you're human because no family needs to go through this situation. Now, you ask yourself, okay, so what passed? Why not in July and August? Why only now? Because if you remember, this month, the month of October, was the hardest month of fallen soldiers. We lost dozens of soldiers, and we have more than 150 orphans. Only here, where our office is in Karnei Shomron, my son sits here, so it's in his school. One of the teachers, no, one of the mothers in his school, lost her husband. They had 10 children. Another guy with 7 children, another guy with 6, another guy with 5, in one weekend in Sukkot. So, suddenly the pressure and the heat is much stronger. What are we talking about? How can we solve this problem? And I've talked about it in the past. I'm not going to go into the details and the history and what on and why are they doing what they're doing. But just to summarize the bottom line, we have a huge percentage of healthy young guys who are not serving in the army. Now, forget about all the others around it. This is the one thing to remember. And while people are fighting for their life and they're 40, you look at those young people and you say, are you going to join? Are you going to be part of what we're doing here? Or it's only our blood that's going to be shed on the streets and in the war zone? So this last weekend or so, and as the debate continues about whether they're going to be drafted or not, and there was an idea was given by one of the ministries, I don't even know who, that says, you know what, the only way we can pressure them and we can influence them to do something is another question. What do you think? What's the only way they might consider getting drafted to the army? Ah,
Money, cutting off funding.
exactly. You know, that one person said once, money is the answer for all the questions. If you ask a question, the answer is always money. But other than when you ask your wife, why does she love you? If the answer there is money, you need to leave. But other than that, all the questions in the end, the answer is money. So what did they do? They decided, you know, in a young age, before the age of 3, um, it's not kindergarten that's is sponsored by the government yet. It's like a private, I don't know how to say it in English, but it's like a private kindergarten for young kids. It's private. It costs a lot of money. People in Israel, when they have certain, situation in the financial side, they get help there. Okay, it's called a ma'on. There was a new law that was supposed to be promoted to say that only people who served in the army are allowed to get this discount. So it wasn't even money, it was receiving a discount. Now, obviously, who has kids in Israel? The Ultra Orthodox. And when you have 3, 4 kids, I say only 3, 4 kids because the average there is 7 and 8. But I said 3 and 4 because you cannot get more than 3 or 4 kids under the age of 3, 4, right? So in those crucial ages, these points, this discount makes a big difference. And now this is a law that goes to the government, and there's a coalition that is more than 60 people, and everybody's obviously needs to vote in favor. I mean, against the law, and allow the ultra orthodox because they're part of the coalition, and that's what Prime Minister Netanyahu says. And suddenly, from that coalition, member of the Knesset from the religious Zionist party and other parties said, yes, we should pass the law. Although it's going to damage the ultra Orthodox, we need to do that because we need to solve the issue. The ultra Orthodox said, if you're going to touch $1 from our budgets, we will make this government fall. Now this is where the debates becomes the ultimate cause. If you are listening to Prime Minister Netanyahu, you need to say, I'm against this law because I want really to go with the coalition, with what the Prime Minister wants, including allowing them to skip once again any punishment for their decision. And the political cost you're going to pay is the fact that maybe on the next vote, they will vote against you. So this happened in the last 24 hours. And in the last 24 hours, the guy who's in charge of secretary, Gallant, said in a very loud voice, we need to change something in the system. Maybe they should pay a bit more. Maybe they need to consider coming to the army. You know what? I'm not going to vote with the coalition. If that's the case, everything dramatically changed. Number one, they decided to drop the law, not to embarrass the government and not passing the law. And the second thing is this movement. Now, Gallant is going to be thrown away. He has enough people in the coalition to continue to pass laws. But if you ask me, that was the first brick in the wall that's going to fall, because there are too many members of the parliament that says enough is enough. And tonight, I bet you will see, I'm going to check now in the end, there are already demonstrations on the streets of Israel, because the saying says as follows: we, the people of Israel, we need help. And we won't allow those ultra-Orthodox people continue not to go to the army. Not because we don't believe in the Torah and in learning, we believe in that. We care for that. But you can do two things at the same time. I have friends who've learned many, many years and yet they serve. And they need to change the concept because we cannot live and coexist in this place with all the pressure if they're not going to get to the army. So you should remember this night, the 5th of November, not only a dramatic vote in the US, but also a dramatic night in the political perspective in Israel. Now, remember this, we will meet in a month and you will remember how this night, when Galat was fired, began this roller coaster of, I don't know how it's going to fall down, but it's going to be a roller coaster of major changes in the political perspectives in Israel.
Shmuel, question. Do you think that Prime Minister Netanyahu did it today strategically because everybody would be watching the US elections and not paying attention to what's going on at home?
Of course, you see, this is immediately how we look at Prime Minister Netanyahu. He's a player, right? He's so good in politics. He did it for, I think there's three reasons why he thought that it can fly by without any demonstration. Number one, not because people are watching the election, it's because people right now, it's 9:20 at night. When you start something like that, last time was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It takes a couple of hours to get organized. You bring buses, you bring this and that, and you have a demonstration. When it's so late at night, will they physically be able to go to the streets? We'll see. The second issue is, it's, it should have been the first, but it's not. Iran has been treading Israel and promised Israel that they will do something after the last attack we gave them. Now they need to answer, and it's going to be in the next couple of days. I think another perspective is that people are waiting for an attack. People are changing some of their plans. I know weddings were canceled because this fear that something is going to happen. I don't know if you remember, it was a night before Rosh Hashanah. All of Israel went into shelters. It was the first time ever they took our phones, and you got an alert like a missing kids in the US. You know how your phone rings? We never had such a thing, that our phones were like, the message was sent into all of Israel, and every single person in Israel sat in the shelter for a couple of hours. So it will happen again, and they're talking about even a more severe attack. Therefore, I think this is another component that already made a change. And I think the third is something that is wider. It's a feeling we have. During the war, we still continue to have demonstrations in Israel every Saturday night. But the feeling in the last couple of months that there's no more demonstrations. It's like, nobody has the energy anymore. So in the last time, there were already demonstrations because they were into it. Right now, nobody's into it. So I think that's what he did to make it pass. What will happen tonight? We will see. I'm pretty sure that something will happen. So on that topic, and if you have more questions, please ask. I wanna talk about exactly this move with Iran, because I'll show you this. So it was the night of Simchat Torah. It was last Wednesday. Was it last Wednesday? Wednesday, a week and a half ago. So we were, the custom is in Simchat Torah, it's the last day of Sukkot. We celebrate, we're dancing with the Torah, dancing with the scroll, and on the street, it's a powerful moment. Unfortunately, right now it's connected with 7th of October that happened in the same day, but that was the holiday. So we're walking on the streets of the community after the evening prayer. It was, I estimated, 8:30, 9 p.m. And I'm walking in the streets, and there's a siren. There's a siren, and missiles attack to Tzufim, to my community. And it was the first time, that was my situation. I had two kids at home, already, two young daughters with me, one of their friend, and we were walking on the streets. So we didn't have our own shelter, and we had to look to somewhere to hide. So they started something very nice in Sufim in our community. And I'm sharing this only to show you the perspective of where we live. So there's a thing now. They put a sign with a blue heart on the fence of the house, saying that if there's a case of an emergency, my home is a shelter as well. So you can go into my home. Like we're welcoming people in case of an emergency. But it didn't stop there. So we hear the sirens, and my girls like they're running all over the place. They don't know where to go. They're like panicking. It's a panicking situation. And I tell them, I saw there's like a blue heart just one door away. Let's go. So they're after me, and I'm knocking on the door, and nobody answers. So I open the door, and the door is open, and I walk inside and I see there's nobody there. But I've noticed that on the table, there is like soup. I see steams coming from plates of soup. So I say to myself, oh, they already started the meal. So what's your instinct? To run inside the shelter they have at their home. But then in a split second, I'm thinking to myself, wait, what could happen if you're inside your home, in your shelter, and somebody from the outside is trying to open your door? Remember what happened in the South in this situation? So I'm thinking that's not something I want to do. I don't want to. I don't want to scare them. They went to the shelter. They closed the door. Now they cannot consider somebody enters. So this is the scenario. My girls are behind me, right? My wife and another friend. I'm entering this stranger's home, and I'm screaming to them, "We are the neighbors. Can we enter with you to the shelter?" And I'm screaming until somebody heard me and said, yes, 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 you can come in. So we enter the shelter, and it was the holiday, and they didn't turn the lights on. So we are there, maybe 20 people inside this small room, pitch dark. And everybody's like, who is it? Who is it? Like, what's your name? What's your name? And kids are like yelling, and like it was like a situation. So I must say that the host of the family, she was amazing. She said, let's talk one by one, that you're going to present yourself. And then when you're going to talk, we know your voice. So she made everybody calm down. But as we were leaving, after a couple of minutes, I stopped my wife and I said to her, did you just notice what happened to us? Like, you see the situation? As we're walking on the streets, the mother of the friend that was with us is running on the streets and yelling her name. Where are you? Where are you? Because she didn't know where she was. So this is what we are facing. And I'm giving you all this introduction just to tell you this. The story of Iran in every other situation would preoccupy our minds and soul. This is what we should have talk and think about all the time, but it's not the case. Right now, we are in a situation that we already are used to this. We are used to go to the shelters, to the safe room, this Friday night, 2 o'clock in the morning, siren. I go to my son's room. I say to him, come down, because the girls' room is the shelter. So we go down and we lock the door. 15 minutes later, we go to bed. It's normal already. That's the new normal. It happens every day, several times a day, not in the central of Israel, but in the north, 100. Here it happened, I don't know, it happened this week, last week. So I read this piece that I think that really, made me understand something. In a way, Israel right now is in a very interesting situation. Now listen carefully to this. They are saying, Iran says that after the attack, we attacked there, which was also in the holiday, they need to answer because we really, injured a couple of people and we demolished their systems against planes. And of course, this is their turn or whatever. In a very interesting way, Israel is almost praying for an attack. And I will explain. We already went through two big attacks from Iran. One was in April, right? And one was before Rosh Hashanah, so a month and a half ago. In those two attacks, between us, nothing serious happened. Between us, I will say that there were a couple of dozens of missiles and drones that were able to land. Some of them in places that the state of Israel wasn't so happy that they came. I don't want to go into details, but let's say if you can imagine where they're aiming, you should know that although we didn't admit that it fell in those places, there were several drones and missiles that fell in places that the state of Israel doesn't want to have missiles in, and I will put it in that brackets. And yet, on those two nights, we saw something that the whole world and every person who understands something in security understand that was nothing normal. So we call it a miracle. But even without calling it a miracle, let's put it in a simple Iran terminology. Israeli forces were able to destroy 99% of the attacks. So now this is what happens in our head. Okay, we're playing chess. Chess is an Iranian game. So it's a good game, good terminology. So right now, they're in a position, okay, that they think they need to answer. And this is what we're saying. The last time we came with 100 plane, we destroyed almost all your abilities to attack against plane. But we didn't attack two major places that you would think we will attack. Number one is nuclear power. Number two is oil fields. Without those two elements, let's say it this way. No, the nuclear, they don't need it, but the oil is what they have going. Without it, they have nothing. We didn't attack there. But this is what we're saying. If you're going to do something, do it now. Tonight. You know why? Because in the next 2.5 months, the USA won't do a single thing about it. Nobody would stop us. Nobody would pressure us. Nobody would orchestrate an attack. Nobody would limit us to what we can do. Right now, we're in a position that we took the gloves out of the game and we say, we're ready. You don't have any ways to stop us. We proved you that we know where all the systems are. We have the capability, we have the motivation, and we cannot wait to finish this madness. A month ago, we couldn't do a thing because the former president, right, is now, can we call him the former, what? So the former president Biden said, don't do this, don't do that. It wasn't good for the election if we will bombard there, if there would be whatever. So he said, relax, do it quietly. Okay, we respect. Bibi Netanyahu didn't want to be the one that's going to take responsibility on damaging the US election. But at this situation right now, if they will attack, we have at least 2.5 months of completely silent from the US side that is going to allow us to do whatever we can to really finish that game. And that's exactly how I want to connect everything back to the election. Why is it so important that the right person needs to be elected in the US for the state of Israel? So if you saw the email that Kim sent today as a reminder for the event, it's connected to this. I can show it in my phone. Can you see it? Let's see. Now you can see it. United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner in Switzerland. Yours truly, me, Kim, we were CC'd on this email brought to you by the UN Human Rights. So first of all, I must tell you, it was a couple of minutes before Shabbat or the holiday, and I was a bit happy to say, wow, I'm on the list. I am recognized. I'm on the human rights resolution. What is it? I don't know. And this is what they're writing to us. Okay, so I'm not gonna read all of this, but that's the notion. We are writing in the reference to Human Rights Council resolution, this and this, on Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories, copies of which are attached for ease and reference. These resolutions call upon the Office of High Commissioner of Human Rights to produce a database of businesses, enterprise that have engaged in certain activities in relations to Israel settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory, to ensure that the yearly update of the database include the additionals and removal of the companies to present the database on the annual basis of the council. Basically, they send me here an email that asks me several questions about what do I do as somebody who works in the occupied territories in the settlements, and they are worried that we are violating resolutions about human rights in the region. They're attaching the resolutions, and they explain in a very, very nice, dramatic way of if you are helping settlers, if you are bridging contacts of improving their lives or building structures, and a long list of elements that basically calls us in CFOIC people that are violating human rights in the occupied territories of Palestine. And I say to that, L'chaim, what can we say? What can we say more? The absurd of an organization that made their lifetime mission helping and protecting the people of Judea and Samaria becomes the bad guys who are doing something against human rights. Like, it doesn't click in my head. Now, I'm not a native English speaker, but I know what's human rights. Human rights is something very basic that I'm all in favor. Everybody's in favor. To even consider and say that we are connected to something that violates human rights is an absurd. And the best part is that this information was given by a righteous person, because they say in the letter that we conduct a survey and your name was submitted of one of these organizations we should investigate. Now listen. You know why we need to have the right president in the US? I think this is exactly where it goes to. Most of the people in this Zoom are Americans, so we need to say it. One day we pray and we hope that Israel is going to be the place that's going to have more power, more control, and more words and saying in the world international arena. But right now, the strongest emperor of the world is the US. And right now, resolutions that are being made by the US presidents control a lot of the way the world looks. It connects it to the human rights in the UN organization. And I remind you, when Trump was the president, he cuts a huge chunk of the budget America allows the UN and different departments there. They're shaking. They don't know what to do. Number two, as we said before, the negotiation about Iran attacking us from where and when is something that if they had a powerful person on that chair in the White House, it wouldn't happen. I actually believe that what Donald Trump said, the attack of the 7th of October wouldn't happen if I was there, I tend to say is right. For one reason, because if you know that somebody is there strong, you do not mess with him. My son came today and told me, he's like in the 6th grade, and he told me yet again, they have a new teacher and they're taking advantage of him. And they're laughing at him and they're doing all kind of things against him. And he cannot do anything. When you don't have the power to stand in front of the class, they will eat you alive. If that's true about a young kid's class, it's true about the world. And all the games and all the things that happen around the world and around the globe happens a lot of the time if you're going back to the basis of who is the US president. And I will tell you this, and I would leave you with this thought. In all the surveys between Harris and Trump, if you noticed, equal. You saw? I don't think that's the reality. I think that they're so scared of after the mistakes they did in the past with their survey, they don't want to give a right answer. But there is something very interesting to look at. And this is something that's connecting, concerns me and should concerns you as well. Kim, do you have the video ready? You're on mute, Kim.
Yep, sorry. Katie's going to share it out because I'm having some technical difficulties here. So she's getting it ready and
I want you to look at this 3 minutes video, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Bagels, coffee, and canvassing. With just days to go before the election, Jewish voters are door knocking for Vice President Kamala Harris in the battleground state of Pennsylvania.
Are you fired up and ready to go?
Jill Zippin, the chair and founder of Democratic Jewish Outreach Pennsylvania, has organized door knocks, phone banks, and an ad campaign to get out the vote for Harris.
I think that Jewish voters have a deep concern this election cycle with respect to anti-Semitism that they didn't have before, but they see the answer to that problem as Harris walls, not Trump.
According to the Pew Research Center, 70% of Jewish adults identify or lean toward the Democratic Party. But the October 7th terror attack in Israel and the rise of anti-Semitism has some rethinking their vote. Like Rona Kaufman, who calls her plan to vote for Trump shocking.
I've been a lifelong Democrat, progressive. I go to, I've only ever supported Democratic candidates for president.
Rona's disappointed by the Democratic Party.
I'm really concerned about Harris's view on Israel as reflected by some of the advisors that she has selected.
Of all the battleground states, Pennsylvania has the highest concentration of Jewish voters, 300,000 according to Brandeis University. Biden won Pennsylvania by only 80,000 votes in 2020, Trump by 44,000 in 2016. In a state like Pennsylvania, small shifts in key coalitions can make a huge difference in the outcome of this election. That's why the Republican Jewish Coalition is spending $15 million this cycle on ads targeting Jewish voters.
I never voted Republican in my life, but I am voting Trump.
Amen. This trend, depicted in the ad, is something Rabbi Seth Adelson has seen in his own community.
There are certainly people in my community who, if they are not tempted to vote Republican, perhaps for the first time in their lives. Certainly they're eyeing the other side of the aisle in a way that many Jews have not done so.
Jewish Republican strategist Jeff Bartos argues Trump has the strongest record on Israel.
Why do I say that? Moving the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, brokering the Abraham Accords, withdrawing from the disastrous Iran nuclear deal.
But former ambassador to Israel Thomas Nides disagrees.
Kamala Harris is going to be great on Israel. I have no pretty clear. I would be standing up here if I had any doubts that in my mind.
He went door to door in Philadelphia working to get people to vote for Harris.
This vote is really going to matter.
The Biden-Harris administration have done more for the state of Israel than any president has in the history of the state of Israel, without question.
And while Republicans are trying to tap into a community that is feeling unsettled, whether it works remains to be seen.
I do not believe there will be a shift or a change in the Jewish vote. The Jewish vote's important because we do vote and we do turn out.
Emma Barnett, NBC News, Philadelphia.
It's a small thing that tells you a lot. Traditionally, the Jewish voters in the US, without a doubt, 75% Democrats in every election. The vast majority based on rituals, based on their belief system, based on the fact that it's a well-known fact, most of Jews in America are unaffiliated, meaning they're not practicing of their religion. And the biggest percentage of practicing Jews are reforms and conservatives. There's a small percentage of Orthodox. That's nothing. It's 10%, 15%. With those 75% voting Democrats, there's a very interesting component that happened in the last year. And that's what I wanted to say about why is it so important to choose the right president. In the last year, something changed in the lives of American Jewry. For the first time in many years, and when I say many years, I think it's more than 100 years. If the big movement of Jews to America started in 1880 until 1920, and ever since then, they're establishing themselves, their community. For the first time in the modern day history of Jews, they felt anti-Semitism and they felt anti-Judaism in the extent that they feel unsafe. This week alone, there were 14 incidents around the US. A famous one was the guy was shot in Chicago. And 2 weeks ago, in the University of Pittsburgh, 2 students are being violently attacked. I gave you 2 examples, just between thousands. So for the first time ever, those American Jews say to themselves, what is happening? Is the Democrat Party doing enough to protect us? We are a small minority. We have nothing in numbers. What does it mean to be in a situation that you are not feeling safe at your home? Now, in Israel, sometimes we don't feel safe, right? It's nothing to compare when you are in an area that everybody's around you is, living only for their safety. And you are in a situation that you are isolated, you feel outside, and you are a person that worked all his life to be part. You invested everything you have in that society. You wanted to contribute to the people around you. And everything and all the efforts and all the contributions and everything that any Jewish person ever did to be part of the society, right now, after the 7th of October, they look to the left, they look to the right, and they feel they are by themselves. And apparently, there is something very more interesting in that, and I will not finish with that, is that the highest percentage of voters that actually mean something because their numbers is crucial is the 300,000 Jewish people that live in Pennsylvania. And as you know, Pennsylvania being such an important state, we will know it in the next day or week or month. I believe that the Jewish votes in Pennsylvania are going to have a crucial change in the election. And we are hoping that for the first time ever, not only they would make a difference in the vote, they will make a difference in the vote for the right place. Because the 75% of Democrat Jews, things are going to change this time. And from those bureaus and those places that have high numbers of Jewish people, if they will go out and vote, and vote well, it might change the numbers. And it's not a mistake that during this weekend, I heard this number. It sounds insane. The Democrat Party knocked on 800,000 homes on the 24 hours of this weekend to pressure and influence voters. It tells you way they understand and they analyze how crucial this area is. Now, I am Israeli. I have no rights to vote. I don't care to vote, but I'm just sharing with you that what would happen tonight and in the next days is very important for us in Israel. But as Kim started and said, either way, God is our only king and control. And as we hope and we pray for the right decisions on this human level, we know for a fact things are going to be okay because we have the real king that is not influenced by changes and votes and, oh, I need to come here, I need to go there because this is the campaign. Only the real, helper of Israel and the people. Thank you very much for today, friends. Let's open for a couple of questions.
The question in the comments.
Yeah. Shmuel, do you see the question in the chat, or do you want me to read it out to you? Someone's asking to, they just want the history of the Orthodox not serving in the army. Has it always been that way? When was it established and why?
I said it before a couple of Zooms ago, and I'll give you a very brief explanation. The honest truth is it all goes back to the Holocaust. In the Holocaust, the people of Israel lost a huge percentage of their people, of their Torah scholars, rabbis and students, and students and students and students. And when Israel, modern day Israel, was established in 1948, the Ultra Orthodox small numbers, and I'm talking about small numbers they came to Mr. David Ben-Gurion and told him, listen, we understand there is a need for a war, but there is also a responsibility of the Jewish people to continue the torch of learning Torah. And they're right. Learning Torah and learning Jewish studies is not something light. It's something that's very heavy. This is our history. This is our everything. This is the reason we became who we became, is because we did not left the torch of tradition. Remember, tradition, it's not a joke. It's crucial. So they came to the prime minister and told him, listen, you should exempt them. Give us 300 boys. 300 boys, it's nothing. Because they need to learn. So yeah, everybody's going to go to the army, but they're going to be exempt. So this is how it started in 1948. But then it grew more and more. There were more students who wanted it. And there were more people drafting in the other side. So, they tried here and there to say to them, maybe you come, maybe you won't. But in the end of the day, that's the realization was that from 48 until 2024, things got better all the time. Even in the wars of 73 and 67, it was just a short while, and then things recovered. The problem is that now the numbers are massive. We're talking about hundreds and thousands of relevant soldiers in the process, and now you're standing in front of this situation where we lost hundreds of soldiers, and we have hit thousands of soldiers injured, and there's not enough manpower to fight. And this is why it all came back again to ask this question. This is a sad reality. This is a situation that we cannot endure anymore. We cannot, because really enough is enough. And when we look at this situation, and as much as we care, and we care for learning Torah, there should be a balance. You can learn, you can serve, we can find a ways you will be able to serve. Because if you ask yourself, not from the history, from the recent time. Why don't they see our sorrow, our pain, and they go and get drafted? The simple answer is this. They still feel they have responsibility on the torch of tradition. And they're afraid if they will send their boys to the army, their religion, spiritual level will drop. They're not wrong. It will drop. The question is, what about our life? And what about the life of the people of Israel? Are we able to stand and fight without you? I don't know. We have God, yes. But when you see your brothers and sisters falling around you, don't you want to do something? That's the biggest question that we cannot find comfort in getting any answer that makes sense to us. And more questions. Katie, while you at it and you're sending things in the chat, maybe you can send a link to the Telegram group. I think it's a good group to join if you can do it. Please, more questions. I cannot see anything written here, but
oh, okay. They said, I don't understand about the general staff. Aren't some of them as bad, if not worse, than Gallant? Can Netanyahu also fire them? Why are they still there?
I need to have names. Who do you think is worse than Gallant? Let's wait for the answer.
Yeah, Margot, who's worse than Gallant? Gallant.
I don't know.
Daniel Havaru. Havaru? Havaru.
Daniel? No?
Havaru? Havaru?
Don't know. I don't know this guy.
Do you know who it is?
No.
Margot, you can unmute yourself, Margot. Tell us who he is.
Yeah, tell us who you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know his name. I heard they wanted to go into the Shifa hospital when they just took the hostages, and one of those general staff guys stopped them. They could have got the hostages early on, but some of those decisions and they didn't tell Netanyahu about the October 7th. They didn't warn him. Wasn't that I might be getting my things wrong, but I've got it all vague.
So you're talking about Daniel Adari, which is the spokesman.
That's it.
Is the spokesman for the army. He's not even in charge of anything. He's only a spokesman. He's being told what to say. But I'll refer to what you're saying. You need to differentiate between people that are part of the government and the parliament, and between people who are professional people who work in the army. The power, the authority of the prime minister is to fire people working for him in the government and in the political arena. Generals, it's a different section. He can recommend, he can ask, but he cannot do anything about it. As for now, we did not even start serious investigating the colonels and the generals that are connected to the worst 7th of October. So we don't have any response, any answers yet. There were a few people that already decided to leave, but nothing that we asked them to leave. I'll open brackets and I'll say this, and I said it many times. People that are claiming that our prime minister need to leave because the way he functioned on the 7th of October will surely agree that we need to fire half of the generals that are in charge in the army, in the special services, the Mossad, and all those security forces that weren't there to tell Netanyahu and tell us something is happening. So if you ask me, yes, all of them can go home. But it's not in his power to fire those generals at this moment. So it's not an option.
Anyone else? Feel free to, you can chat it or you can unmute yourself. Any questions, thoughts, comments? I don't know. Shmuel, any last thoughts on what Israel's facing? Well, I think it was interesting what you said as far as like for the next 2.5 months, Israel's not going to face any pressure from the US, no matter who wins tomorrow, because we really don't have a president until January.
Let's listen. We don't. It's a situation that you're not wishing for, because you don't want them to attack again just for the risk of it. But sometimes, the feeling is that we should have doing more, and we had the power to attack and make it more painful, and we didn't. So maybe if we'll be in a situation that we have the rights and another reason to attack, we can take advantage of that. So by the way, it started already. This is the photos of the demonstration starting now in Tel Aviv. It's on. So follow up in the next couple of hours. I must say that I saw that even during this dramatic day in the US, still all the news in the world immediately channeled and say, look at what Netanyahu did. So even this political decision made a fuss. We'll see.
Well, I think it's very interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but when Israel attacked, I think it was when Obama was getting elected, and they went into Gaza. There was a war or skirmish that Israel started right in November, right now, because they knew that they could finish it in 2 months and be done.
It's a well-known situation. Look at what we are doing. We are taking advantage when they cannot see us, they cannot do anything about us. What if we will pray for a president that will allow it, that will see how this is justice, that the people who took everything from us need to pay, and we need to change the atmosphere there, and we need to make a big change. We can only pray for that. So in this way, I will finish by saying, today I saw here, I have it here. It's funny. You will love it. A couple of hours ago, all around the internet, it's already published, is that somebody's posting this. This is like a blessing to the success of Donald Trump. And they call it Donald John Ben, the son of Fred Trump, like in the Israeli way. And what they write here is this. Not a politician. You remember the embassy moving to Jerusalem? You remember the Golan Heights issues? You remember the Abraham Accords? You remember the support Israel received? That's it. If somebody can do such a thing to the people of Israel, he should be blessed, and he should be there protecting the nation. We believe in God's, mercy, but he uses us. And sometimes these figures are revealing themselves in the world and in history. That's their job, that's their task, and we applaud them. I want to finish by saying this. A week ago, on Thursday, I went with friends to FOZ Museum in Jerusalem. Now, I've never been there. They asked me to come, and I went, and I was very impressed. There's a museum where people that made great things, not Jews, who made things to Jewish people, are being recognized. Now, I don't know who organizes it. I don't know who's the people behind it. Maybe they're questionable. Kim can tell you that maybe they're not good or whatever. I don't care. I would say this. When you're standing there, I was with Christian friends, right? When they stood there and they saw great people who risked their life, risked their I would say everything to help Jewish people and to do for the people of Israel. The fact that they're standing there in a museum, honoring them, respecting them, telling their story is a remarkable thing. In the end of the museum presentation, there's a movie that says, Janet, you've been there because I see you're nodding your head. So in the end of the movie, there's a movie that says, they took a photo of us when he started the tour. You don't know where it's gonna come back. They say you get a magnet, But in the video, they say, there will be a time. Now, those people got a moment in time and they were asked to do something for the Jewish people, and they did. There will be a moment in time that you will be asked to do the same. What will you do? And then you see the faces of the people that they took. And it takes a second for you to realize, I'm there on the wall. That was a very inspiring and awesome moment that you realize it is true. There are moments like that, that the calling is in your hand. You can do something, you can change, you can help, you can support.
Can I ask a question, please? You mentioned Telegram. What on Telegram? What's your title? Because I'm just looking through my Telegram to try and find you, and I can't find you.
Our
So,
group,
what title do you use?
so first of all, we have on the chat a link to find us. The group name is CFOIC, capital letters,
Yeah.
Heartland Updates. So if you
Thank you.
search for that, you will find us.
Right.
And it's a great tool to communicate. Pam is right now organizing our tour in February in 2025 in Australia. And I tell her all the time, it is unbelievable that people are in the right place in the right time and dedicate their focus, their energy, their love to Israel, and they're changing big things. So it's Pam, it's Kim, it's all of you here, and it's probably the president is going to be elected as we speak, hopefully. And with that, I will finish because I wanted to see, I'm bipartisan. I'm not in favor of anybody. I was very vague about who I'm supporting. I hope. And I wish you all a good night, good news, and really, oh, as always, we finish by praying for the secure of Israel, the soldiers who are fighting, and the hostages that are still there. It is not a joke. Always remember them, and may God is going to give us only better news and better people in the right places to help is people, and the journey is planning for them. Thank you, my friends. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. And keep praying. Keep standing strong.